Watch this scene for a moment. Don't look for anything specific, just watch. What story is it telling you? Most people see the river, maybe some nice autumn colours, the sun coming through the trees, the derelict building. But there's an actual narrative unfolding here that's been happening for decades, centuries even. And once I show you how to see it, you'll find stories in every landscape you try to photograph. And here's what nobody tells you about landscape photography. The images that stop you scrolling, the ones that clients pay for, they're not just pretty snaps, they're stories. But every tutorial you've watched tells you about camera settings, or probably more importantly, composition rules. How do you see a story in a landscape? Nobody teaches you how to see the story that's already there before you press the shutter. And that's the difference. You're not creating the story, you're not forcing a narrative onto a scene. The story's already there. It's happening in this parkland, on the coastline, whatever your favorite area is to take landscape photos. The reason I've been paid to take landscape photos, it's not because I've got better gear or access to better locations than you, it's that I've learned to read the landscape, understand the story that it's telling me. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you 4 things that I look for in every landscape photo. Whether it's a parkland like this, a coastline, a forest, a dramatic mountain scene. These 4 elements are always there, and a lot of photographers will just walk past them without ever realizing it. They're always telling a story that most people just miss. Once you understand what to look for, you'll never look at a landscape in the same way again. You'll soon understand why an empty path can tell a much better story than a dramatic sunset, and why the smallest of details are your best storytelling hooks. I'm going to demonstrate it in this parkland today by a river. But it doesn't matter what landscape you're in, these 4 elements will work in all cases. And I'm going to set off to what I think is a great location. The first element every landscape story needs is an anchor point. It's usually referred to as foreground interest. And what I've chosen here is this pebble beach, and particularly there's a bit of a log here that's been washed up that's leading you into the frame. Now, when you choose your anchor point, you don't want to just choose any old random rock or something to make foreground interest. Try and choose something that you know will have a story. This pebble beach has been formed by years and years of the river flowing round and eroding the banks and washing up these pebbles when it's in full spate and there's been a huge rainstorm or something, and it's formed its shape, and its shape probably changes over the years quite a bit. So that's why it's an interesting anchor point. So that's what you need to look for when you're trying to choose something for foreground interest to anchor your viewer's eye and take them into the story and into the frame. Now, the second element is context. And really that's about the environment around you. And it's up to you to decide how much of it you want to show, what to include, what to leave out. Now, in my story today, I definitely wanted to include this building over on the left. It's going slightly derelict, it's got a story of its own. I wanted to include the bridge right in the distance. And also, though I don't particularly like it, there's a lot of debris in front of it, washed up trees and branches and things. They also add elements to the story. They're telling us that they've been washed down the river on a stormy night or whatever. Think about that when you're deciding your framing, what you want to include in your composition. Leave out details that you think don't add anything to the story, but make sure you capture the critical ones in it. If I go too tight, I lose my context. I could be anywhere. I'm lacking some more in the environment to tell the full story. So I'm looking at my edges carefully. I might have, if I look at the framing as I'm showing you now, too much grass on the right-hand side. And I don't think the derelict building is in the right position either to give the context that it's right by the river. So I need to turn my frame a little bit and just center it up a bit more like that. Now we know where the story is taking place. If I was shooting this on the coastline, it would be a different story, and I'd be looking maybe for a groin leading into the sea, one that's weathered and battered, maybe with stones crushed up against one side. What I'm trying to say to you is, it doesn't really matter what your scene is, there's still context and an anchor point that you'll be able to find there. Now we're getting somewhere. We've got an anchor point that leads us into the story, and we've got some context around it. But we need the third element, and this is an element often many photographers leave out and miss the whole point of the story. And that third point is details, or evidence, if you like, of what the story is all about. And this is what a lot of photographers will walk right past, because they get a bit obsessed with the big scene, the big picture. They're looking at this whole landscape in front of them, where they should be looking for some small details, some little things that will keep the viewer's eye, that will keep them interested, that maybe they won't spot straight away, but after looking at the photo for a while, they'll start to appreciate them. There's a couple of examples here on this building behind me. There's some stone steps that lead up to the main pathway. Further down, there's a ladder leading right into the water. What was that used for? Was there a boat here? Is that how they accessed the river? Or did somebody simply ford across? Those little details are what give you the story. So make sure you don't miss them out and go looking for them. Look down as well as up and focus in on them, and not just the big picture. Our story's really starting to build up now. We've got an anchor point, we've got some context, and we've found some evidence and details. But there's one thing that's going to add the most emotional impact to our story that we haven't talked about yet. And that thing is light. Now that's something you can't control. You might be stuck with the weather conditions of the day, but it is something that you can try and weave into your story and weave into your photo. Understanding light is absolutely key, because light reveals the character in your anchor point. It emphasizes the context or the environment your landscape story is set in, and it makes the evidence and details visible and gives them emphasis. If you'd like to know more about how to see light like a professional photographer, I've created a free ebook. I'll leave a link in the description and you can download your free copy. Now, natural light is something you can't control, especially when you're out in the environment like this. And as you can see here today, it's a mixture of sunshine and clouds. I can do a couple of things. I can time my shot so that the light is hitting something interesting. You see in the background, it's just setting behind this bridge, and it's been falling on some of the trees and the leaves, and it's bringing out the autumn colors. So that's one thing I'd like to emphasize. The other thing to do is try and set up your composition so you take advantages of where the light is going to fall. And it's the real key to creating the atmosphere and the fine details of your story. One of the things I've decided to do is to take a long exposure. The light is reflecting off the river here. Sorry, I'm getting eaten by midges. And what I'm hoping to get is reflections of the trees and the clouds in this soft river surface. And I'll get that better by having a longer exposure. The other thing I want to do is, for my story, I want a feeling of calm and serenity. And I'm going to get that by doing the long exposure, because it's going to smooth out these ripples on the water. You could tell an entirely different story by just having a fast shutter speed and freezing those ripples if you wanted to tell something that had more aggression about it, more drama. So that's brought all the four elements together: an anchor point, some context, some details or evidence, and finally the light. So let's have a look at the photographs I've taken. I don't profess to be a great landscape photographer like many others you'll see on YouTube, but I am good enough to get paid for it and even commissioned for special photos. So let me just summarize those 4 points, what I included in my final shot. See, I've used this tree trunk down here that kind of leads you into the frame, along with this bit of pebble beach that's been all these stones brought down by the river when it's in its spate. I've also made sure to include the derelict building, the steps going up. There's also a little ladder going up from the river, which you can imagine somebody with a how they access the river on a boat or something. Behind me, there's a bridge. Gets quite a lot of traffic on it. And that's one reason why I wanted to do a long exposure. I've exposed for 272 seconds, a weird number, I know, but it eliminates anything passing on the bridge. And it also has smoothed out the water and given me a nice, soft, calming feel to my photos. And the final thing is the light. Now the sun's been going in and out behind the clouds. Occasionally it catches the trees, and that's something I'm trying to build up in my memory, because I'll do something with that in post-processing to lighten them up and emphasize the autumn colors. And here's what matters. Every landscape is showing you this, whether it's coastal, woodland, parkland like I'm in today. They're all showing you anchors with character, context and environment. Context that gives meaning, evidence of the passing of time, and an atmosphere or lighting that reveals the story. Here's a shot I took when I first arrived, before I started looking in detail for the story. Nice enough, decent composition, but maybe there's a bit too much clutter in it, and it's not really got the right amount of foreground interest or the details that I wanted. So in this first scene, I'm just showing you a shot. I'm just showing you a scene. But in the second, I'm showing you what the landscape has been revealing about itself. Time, change, cycles, survival, storms, calm. Now let me save you some time by going through some of the mistakes I learned when I was getting to grips with telling a story in landscape photography. Just a minute, I've jotted them down so I don't forget any. First one is going too wide, trying to include too much in your shot and losing the very specific story. The landscape is telling you what to focus on and you're ignoring it. The second mistake is walking past the evidence because you've seen something pretty. You're just ignoring the proof and the details that are right there in front of you. But you've seen the sunset colors going behind the mountains, and you've missed that evidence of the passing of time, the moss growing on the rocks, the fungi growing out of the tree trunks. The third one is getting obsessed with perfect lighting or perfect days. You know, the weather forecast is notoriously inaccurate. So I would urge you just to embrace the situation you're in. This is, after all, what shaped the landscape, the weather of every day. So take advantage of the weather you're faced with, whether it's a dull, cloudy day or a harsh, bright, sunny day. Go with it, embrace it, and adapt your story to include it. The fourth and perhaps most common mistake is trying to force a story or a narrative on the scene in front of you. You have a vision of dramatic light, of those rays of sunlight breaking through the clouds, a misty morning, but you're frustrated because you've only been able to get out in the midday sun or afternoon light, and it's far from perfect. But what the conditions are revealing to you is their own story. Look for the things that are enhanced by that light. Slow down and look for the things that are right in front of you and find that story. Don't try and impose your own upon the scene in front of you. And the final mistake is missing the character in the things that are right in front of you. That tree isn't just a tree, it's lived for decades. It's lived through wars and famines and happy times and glorious summers. And the evidence is embedded into the nature that's all around us. So make sure you take the time to look for it. So remember at the start of this video, I asked you to watch this scene and could you see a story on it? How do you feel about it now? Can you see that story? My challenge to you is to go out now and have a go when you're taking your own landscape photos and look for those anchor points, the context, and most specifically the details and how you can use the available light to enhance them. Most of all, enjoy our natural world, have some fun with your camera, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.